Alright, everybody, it's our Klaus here, and I am so incredibly excited for today's presentation and what I have to share with all of you. And I want to do something a little different today in how I preface this. And I want you to think about the way we go about presenting research on here. And that is through the deciphering of cultural milestones, people, events, etc., political happenings, films, headlines. I'm not really too interested in headlines. But all these different pieces and really breaking them down, looking at how they connect into not only spans of time, but also their numerical correspondences through gematria and just numerology in general, the tarot deck, all of these different pieces, right? And one of the most common things that comes across here is that, well, there's just too much. There can't be meaning in all of that, or you can find this and that, and it's just not. So an example that came across my mind, a way to think about this, is in relation to all of the systems that comprise the human body. And in particular for this example, just thinking about muscles. And generally speaking, there are around 700 muscles. And so even if we cut that number in half to 350, because, right, everything's mirrored in the body, not many people know the name of each of those muscles, or what they're doing even. But each and every one of them plays a very integral role in the system that is the individual, and is of course connected to many others, right, such as bones, nervous system, tissues, all of these things. And again, each of those comprised of just as many pieces, if not more, of course, all of this totaling billions of individual neurons and connective tissues, on and on, right? That not many people know the name of or are even aware of. Yet, they are all incredibly important in manifesting the will, in creating reality. And that's much like the system that we utilize in the numbers here. And again, thinking about that number of 350, roughly half of the general muscles in the human body, I tend to use the simple values of gematria, and I really don't go past 350 all too often. And so, again, in saying there's importance in all of those numbers and many more, is by no means a reach. It's just a matter of understanding. And for as much as I understand, there's just as much that I don't. And that's why I always encourage people to do their own research on top of this. And I love the comments that come through a lot of the time, because they do expand on and enhance the information here for a lot of those coming across these videos. But so again, in thinking about the numbers as a part of the system created by the elite to, again, order around all of these other pieces and how it's interconnected. But so, with that being said, and again, this idea here on this channel, right, there's a lot of fields straddled. I am, on paper, a man of science. I do hold multiple degrees in scientific fields and do have a lot of respect for the concept of science. It is a construct, and I do feel that it plays a much heavier role than people understand. But with that, I am just as much a man of spiritual and energetic just awareness and connectivity. And through that, and through what I apply with my skills as a scientist and honing in on these numbers for you, I feel I am able to paint a very interesting picture in being aware of both my base and higher self. And so I'm really going to be expanding on that in this video today, because the things I'm going to show you are just unreal. But they're very much real. And surreal at that. So, let's get into this. And let's talk about what I found to be the most interesting thing that happened yesterday, September 13th, Friday the 13th, 2019, the full harvest moon, an anniversary of countless things, including the first New York City Marathon back in 71 or 70. And a date that I had been holding on the radar for quite some time. And of all the things vying for attention, what I found to be the most fascinating thing to have happened yesterday was Chelsea Wolfe releasing her latest album, Birth of Violence. And for those of you scratching your head at this point, I completely understand, but as always, if you bear with me to the end of this video, you are going to come to see and realize the just profound importance of this individual. Now, in thinking about this, let's consider this image from the trailer for this album, in which it begins here with a snowfall scene. Now, think back, and for those of you with a keen ear, to my UNESCO Artemisia video discussing not only the World Heritage Site in South Africa, the Cradle of Humankind, but also the renowned painting, the Judith beheading Elefrenes. And again, all of this in relation to, of course, this 33rd edition of the World in 2019. But so in that video, the opening song is actually from Chelsea Wolfe, because I do appreciate a lot of the music that she has put out. And very interestingly, the song that I chose, and nothing by this channel is by mistake, but the song was entitled Iron Moon. And so you can see quite clearly here that it has that simple value of 113, not only sharing coding with Apocalypse, but also viewed as the date November 3rd. Of course, marking this year's New York City Marathon on the first Sunday, the 44th Sunday, all of these things. And notice as well, Iron Moon, both words 4 letters. So there's your 44, and I and M are the 9th and 13th letters. 913. Just like the release of Birth of Violence yesterday on the full harvest moon. So, not only that, but that song is from her album Abyss. Now, thinking about how much we discuss that concept on here in relation to Nox, the Knight of Pan, is pretty unreal. But if you look to the right side of your screen, you will notice that Iron Moon Abyss shares coding with Full Snow Moon. Now, stay with me, because of course that snow moon took place on the 50th day of this year, which was February 19th. Now, the simple value of 50 just so happens to be the same as Joy, which is Chelsea Wolfe's middle name. Now, of course, you can see all of these other bits with 219, and it really is one of the most supremely important numbers. Again, seeing One World Trade Center there opened on November 3rd, and all of these other references to Trump and these ideas of just war and illusion. But so, in thinking about all of that and looking back here again to this starting with the snow and all of my discussion about the film Us, inverting the cover gives you the word snow without the W, and all of the pieces we've talked about with that. But so now, the other thing I want to pull your attention to here as we round the bend, and again, we're going to be talking a lot about this trailer, but so in it there is a picture of this, a shot of this painting. And this really blew me away in the surreal connections of things, because I just so happened to have that very fucking painting. And have had it for roughly the amount of time that I have been doing this channel. Randomly acquired at a Goodwill. And so there you can see me holding my copy of the Book of Lies next to it. And so we're going to come back to that. But I want you to see here, back to the trailer. And you can go through here, and these numbers are the numbers that this scene ends with. And the odds of these numbers are, by no mistake, the 77, 103, and 55. Now, when we open up the Book of Lies to chapter 77, it is, of course, Layla. Now, what I want you to see here is this is on page 164. And so, when we go back here on the left side of your screen, and we look at the coding for Chelsea Joy Wolfe spelled out, it is 164. Now, I also want you to take note that 103 is written out, and that does share coding with September. And again, that is a number right in the middle here. And if you drop the 0, it is 13, the death card, the transformation card. But I also want you to think of this 177 written out, because not only does that number reduce to 77, 1 times 77, but it is also the same as the Scarlet Woman. And why this is so crucial is because Layla was Crowley's Scarlet Woman, directly referred to as such, as you can see here. And she died on September 13th. Again, the same day that Wolfe released her new album, yesterday. International Chocolate Day, Uncle Sam Day, all of its connections. And again, just looking at Layla and her importance here with this birth date of August 10th. And again, in relation to Del Rey releasing that single High by the Beach, which has that 666, 111 coding. And again, this trailer just so happens to be 1 minute, 11 seconds, that 111. And so all of that right there should just have you completely stunned. But I want you to notice as well here the referencing to the death horseman and the water serpent. Because all of our discussion of water and its supreme importance, not only conceptually with the beast out of the sea, but also everything we've discussed with Nemo, NASA's underwater facility program, and that facility is actually titled Aquarius. And you see as well here USA Grid Blackout, and we're going to be talking about Wolfe's current tour. Just so happens to be the American Darkness tour. So get the fuck out with that. But one other number that's written out there is 13-7. And so if we were to pull that up over here, it is a very important number. You can see it not only connected to the path of death, but also the eye of Horus and mind control, as well as these ideas of dissociation. Now, I want you to think about this with Chelsea Wolfe, because she is pretty notoriously, has this past of being subjected to sleep studies at a very young age, and how this played a pivotal role in the songwriting for the album Abyss, as well as Hisspun. So again, you can see there her describing that by the time she was 11, she was drinking 40s. So again, 11, the chief magic number, and it will, as always, pop up throughout today. Now, let's get back to this mixer for a second, though, because this is a pretty crucial piece here. So if we take all of those numbers and we add them together, 77, 103, and 55, it gives us the number 235. Now, this is unreal, because it is the same as Victory of the People. And that is, of course, connected to me. Very interesting. It's also the same as Reduit Saturnia Regna, the return to the kingdom of Saturn, that bit that I'm always talking about in relation to the Constitution. And look, today's date, September 14th, when I'm showing you one of my most surreal videos. So again, we are 138, written out all of the connections to the Trump assassination and the Pez theory. But you just can't neglect the profound nature of that. But let's keep moving though, because we have not even gotten started breaking this down. I want you to see that her record label is Sargent Records. Of course, S&R reduce 1 and 8, so there's your 18 moon card. But if we add those without reducing the 19th and 18th letters, it does total to 37. Now, I do find that interesting, because this mixer scene with this shot is at exactly 37 seconds. If it's at 38 seconds, that is not visible. Profound. Now, Sargent Records, both of those words are 7 letters, so there's another 77. But let's keep going here. So the announcement of this album was made on June 18th. And you know what? Before we even get to that, let's go back to Layla for a second, because she's so interesting. And there is this piece here with her performing the rites of Ulysses. I know I pronounced that wrong. But what I think is so interesting about this is it is a ritual comprised of 7 rites, again, supremely important number. And there are 7 points on the seal of Babylon, again, connected not only with Our Lady Babylon, but also heavily with Layla. But you notice with these rites here, it begins with the rite of Saturn and ends with the rite of Luna, or the moon. But why I find this to be so interesting is there just so happens to be this group in Seattle, of course, that was began in 2001 to bring these rites to the stage. And so they did so across this span of time, which they cite as 16 years. And they inverted the order of the rites. So they actually concluded with the rite of Saturn last year in 2018. And so I think that's very interesting in so many ways, just to put on there. And the actual release of that just happened over this summer. And if we look into just the coding of the rite of Saturn, of course, supremely important planet, it does have that simple value of 199, which is the same as do what thou wilt and the planned genocide of America. So again, all of that alongside the phrase the Magnificent Seven, again, the 7 rites associated with that ritual. But so let's keep going here, right? On here you can see it was announced June 18th that Birth of Violence would be coming out on, or excuse me, just announced that it would be coming out. So the span of time from that announcement to its release is 88 days. That's right. That 88 false flags, the New Age, fatalist, you name it. Let's get all the way to the last one. And all of these connections to these major pieces. And if you're scratching your head, you gotta check out my previous videos. Because again, not only that reference to polar bear, but look at this. Back to the left side, 2 months and 27 days. Remember, February 27th was International Polar Bear Day. And all of the connections I've shown you with that, and why it is a very strategically chosen dualistic animal for global warming, why it's that poster child, why it was in the film Natural Born Killers with the Aurora Borealis right before the prison riot. Now, again, I could go on, but you see here as well these references to the Athenium, to Trump. It is a massively important number, and I could go on about 227 as well, and all of its connections to information that I've discussed. Now, give me just one moment here, and we're really going to just keep moving. So something I want you to take stock of here, and we're still talking about this span of time in between the announcement of the album and its release. And if we look at that as 12 weeks and 4 days, as you can see there, it is a simple value of 124. Now, of course, an incredibly important number here, right side of your screen, connected not only to the phrase the future, and remember Trump's whole the future belongs to us, and if you were just familiarizing yourself with the right side of your screen, you see all of that, and it's just profound connections here. Now, if you keep moving, I want to show you some interesting things. And remember, American Maniacs was the show that the live killing took place on Natural Born Killers. And again, in relation to the polar bears and all of that I was just mentioning. But so if we look at the amount of time from June 18th to November 8th, huge day that I'm looking at, whole Battle of Midway bit. But you notice it's 144 days. Now again, 144 is a supremely apocalyptic number, and you can see on the right side of your screen its connections to the Order of 11, the New Age religion. Again, 216 written out. Again, if we did 6 times 6 times 6, that's what we'd have. You also see Trauma Room 1, where JFK was announced dead, but here you have again Scarlet Woman, and how we're connecting this to Chelsea Wolfe, who I showed you very clearly is a candidate for that title. Now, keep going here. And if we look at the release of the album date, September 13th to November 3rd, again, the big the big day, it's 139 days. Now that's really interesting because 139 is also a way that we could write that date out of September 13th, as you can see there on the left. Now, that value of 139 is very important, as you can see on the right side of your screen, connected to the phrase, "Behold the coagula," of course, from the film Get Out. You also see groupthink, what spills out of Erykah Badu's head after she is shot in Dealey Plaza, a la JFK, and all of the amazing things I've shown you in relation to that. And you also see, of course, those references to global economy. Now, back to the left side of your screen, and I've got some reminders here for why November 3rd and 8th are so interesting to me. Again, if we add them, it is 33, and if we look at their reductions, again, the 8th of November to 88, and the 3rd to 33, and add those, 33 and 88 is 121. Now again, right side of your screen, you can see it sharing coding with Don Trump, blood sacrifice, Antichrist, and again the pangolin, and that is on again that 33rd edition of The Economist's World In. And I have that whole video discussing, I think it's actually the one when you come to the channel that is visible and recommended, because pangolin is, of course, an anagram for pan lingo, and all of the fascinating things that we've discussed with that. And again, thinking about Chelsea Joy Wolfe, and that's a 15-letter name. That's the devil card, and that directly ties in with all of that information. Again, this is always building, and that is why it comes across as so staggering, is because all of it is indeed connected. And again, even these references here to 7 seals, and the fact that Chelsea Wolfe attributes inspiration to the filmmaker Ingmar Bergman, who created the film The 7 Seals. All the things that I could continue to go on with, right? So let's keep moving here, though. So what I want you to see, and again, when we're looking at those dates and the span between them of 144 and 139, now if we add those together, and this is a unique move here, but we get the number 283. Now, 283 is the same simple value as President Zachary Taylor. Now, why on earth could that be so interesting? Well, let's think about a few things here. So Zachary Taylor was the 12th president of the United States of America. Now remember that the 12th tarot card is the Hanged Man, and what this has to do with the idea of sacrifice for progression. But what's so very interesting about Zachary Taylor is he played an integral role in my Pez Theory videos. And the reason for that is because in episode 144 of The Simpsons, the episode Lisa the Iconoclast, there is a direct reference to the exhuming of Zachary Taylor when they dig up the body of Jebediah Springfield. Now, when they do so, it is Police Chief Wiggum who pulls his head off and sings Camptown Ladies. And again, they all find this very entertaining. But when we look into just what's going on now, as recently as August 27th of this year, 2019, there is an article referencing President Taylor being exhumed. And to me, that is so incredibly interesting. Now, when we look at this further, you can see that on July 4th, he consumed the foods that made him fall ill and be poisoned, all of these things that led to his dying. Of course, it happened at the Washington Monument and all of the things we could go into there, but we've talked a lot about July 4th, including just moments ago with Trump's whole salute to America and concluding that speech with the phrase, "The future belongs to us." So again, a supremely important date. But look here as well, because he is said to have died at 10:35 p.m. Now, if you drop the 0 out of that, you have that ever important 135 here. I'm going to bring you back so you can see it connecting to the 3 diamonds, Rod Williams, the Golden Gate Bridge, all of these huge pieces that we're constantly discussing on here. And again, even if we were looking at that time, 1035, that came up as a Jewish value as recently as my video discussing Bernie Sanders and this concept of Cardinal East, which his campaign slogan, "Not Me, Us," has the same simple 107 coding of. Now I'm going to come back to that number because it is so incredibly important. But again, this 1035 here is the same as the 4 cardinal point initials. And again, buried alive, the connections to Trump and Blaine there, as well as the Brotherhood of Saturnalia and the number 108. Which again, I have talked about so much, but let's keep going here. Back to Zachary Taylor. I found it to be really interesting that in spite of his short-lived tenure as president, that he ended up on a presidential dollar coin in 2009, again, a huge date, year, 10 years ago, all of the bits there with the wheel and its connections moving forward. But the fact that in 1938 he appeared on a U.S. postage stamp for the 12-cent presidential issue of 1938. And why that number interests me so much is because 1938 is the same value for love is the law, love under will, spelled out completely, but was also the year that on December 17th, there was the discover of nuclear fission using uranium. Now, to me, that's completely stunning. What are the odds of that? And again, thinking about that 7-4 from when he fell ill on July 4th, and that this year on World Snake Day marked the 74-year anniversary of the Manhattan Project's Trinity test, is World Snake Day, and also when Elon Musk announced Neuralink, all the things I discussed in that. But so, again, thinking about him appearing on postage stamps, the last time was in 1986, 33 years ago. And I want you to think about as well the fact that the first time he appeared on a postage stamp was June 21st, because June 21st was actually Lana Del Rey's birthday, and that does come up in the coding for Chelsea Wolfe's American Darkness tour, alongside the number 33, and again, the last postage stamp 33 years ago. Wow. We'll get to that more in a moment. So I wanted to get all of that in there for you. And to me, it's really interesting as well in thinking about that a 2010 review concluded that there is no definitive proof that Taylor was assassinated, nor would it appear that there is definitive proof that he was not. So, interesting to think about. And again, this idea of rising the dead that I told you to hold on to earlier is what I think about when we talk about him being exhumed. Now, a big piece here of why he's so important in connection to Chelsea Wolfe is multiple in its dimension. So as I stated, Taylor was the 12th U.S. president. Chelsea Wolfe is 12 letters. Birth of Violence, her latest album, is 12 tracks, and the first two singles, respectively, were tracks 1 and 2, another 12. So, tickets for the tour went on sale at exactly 12. Let's go back here, let's find it. 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The official tweet for the album's release was 12 p.m. September 13th, again there. And so all of these bits, and when we look at the tease for this album's release, it came on January 2nd, 1-2. There's another 12 for you there. And again, the only thing she writes here is 2019. And so if we drop that 0, it's that 219. And again, that was at the beginning of this video when the full snow moon occurred, and that incredibly important coding that comes alongside it, including discussion of the assassination of Donald Trump. But so again here, you can see the coding, or excuse me, this is from Book of Thoth. If you want to familiarize yourself, it's an incredibly fascinating card. Again, these ideas of water and serpents really do mold here. These two triangles that are created from the way his body is going into the water. And of course, if we just go back, as I keep saying, to the beginning here, Chelsea Joy Wolfe and Water Serpent, End of Days, all of these huge pieces connected. So let's change this because that does say PM, so we've got that there. But now I want to also leave you this bit here discussing the number 12, because you can see not only its relation to the 144 and everything I've discussed thus far, but again, you can see its huge connections throughout history. I'm just going to leave you these links because there is so much here. And again, daily life stuff, months of the year, hours of a day, hours of night, on and on, okay? So, very important. What's this here? So give me just one moment again. Alright. So, the first single that was released for this album is titled The Mother Road. Now, notice the simple value for that is 150. Of course, if you drop that 0, it's 15, the devil card, all the ways that keeps looping back. But I want you to see that it is the same as cholera morbus. And why that is so interesting is because that is actually the stated cause of death for Zachary Taylor. And it is also the same as November 3, written out, and understanding, and Liber Alvel Legis, and all of the things that I've talked about in connection with that. And we think about Taylor being exhumed and all of the times Abe Lincoln has been exhumed. And this idea, again, of his statue and the AL that his hands are moving for the initials of this Liber Alvel Legis, Crowley's Book of the Law. But so as well here, notice that the Mother Road is the same as Harvest Moon, which happened again on Friday, September the 13th, 2019. The same day Birth of Violence was released. And again, reference here to The Sopranos, and not only to my research connecting that to the Trump card and the Battle of Midway, but it says here that Wolfe has been noted as having a soprano vocal range, so I just fucking love that one. But so, again, you can go on and connect this to all of my previous videos, including this reference here to monarch slaves. But I want you to see here again the second single, and again how we said there, tracks 1 and 2, that 12, American Darkness. Now, notice there that 155 coding. Very important number. Think about my name, R. Klaus Amoun. Letters are 155. But it's also the same as Camptown Ladies, which, remember, I told you in episode 144 here, when they're riffing the exhuming of Zachary Taylor, Wiggum is singing Camptown Ladies with Jebediah's head. Now, you should just be thinking, my fucking God. But I also want you to think about that erotic violence coding. And I want you to think about this tweet that Wolfe put out on 9/11, where she's laying in bed with a knife. Now, to me, that's a depiction of erotically violent visuals, right? And when we look at this further, not only is the photo by a guy whose numbers here, 323, are Chelsea Wolfe, the 3rd and 23rd letters, so there's that, and I'll talk about it more later. But you'll notice here that it was put out at 10:25 p.m. Now I know I'm going to get some shit for this, but whatever. Notice that 10:25 is the same coding for 9/11 false flag. And again, she puts this out on the 18-year anniversary of 9/11. Now notice as well that this number is also connected to Marilyn Monroe appearing in the film The Misfits that was released 1,025 days before JFK was assassinated. Now, as I discussed, the Misfits have that album cover for Bullet where Kennedy is being assassinated. And, of course, the track accompanying that is We Are 138. T&M from the Misfits 2013 is 33. But again, now that extra layer that you can see on the right side of your screen is really quite stunning to me. Now, I also want you to note that if you drop the 0, that movie happens to be 125 minutes long. And I want to show you all the way back here that a simple value of 125 is the same as Deathbed Edition, the 33rd edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. And again, he's also on that 2019 World End cover, as I've really gone into. And it's also the same as False Flag Attack. And again, all of this is connected to images depicting the ratification of the U.S. Constitution through the the federal pillars. All right. And how Reduit Saturnia Regna appears in that. And again, that is something that I've gone into, and you can see it on the right side of your screen. This is all of such massive importance. But so how unreal. Even when we think about this symbol of 150, that is actually also the same as the Jeffersons. Because when we're looking at American Darkness and George Jefferson appears there, remember we were talking about that live in front of a studio audience and Woody Harrelson being on there and all the fucking things with him and Natural Born Killers. It's just amazing. You have to stand back in awe at what I have been able to connect here for you. But so, with all of that, let's keep going here. So again, this album was released on September 13th, and let's think about Chelsea Wolfe's birthday for a second, because it is November 14th, and as I had shown in the beginning of the video, that does reduce down to 444. You can see that really easily there. But so on the right side of your screen, you can see just a handful of things connected to that 444 coding, and again that simple value of 74 in the things I've elaborated on in this video with that number. Now you can see as well here that connection to dark blue, and of course all of the connections with Kali that I have gone into with that. But so again, the 444 connected to Order of Thelema and Head Mind Control. Again, when we think back to this Mother Road coding of Monarch Slaves and Chelsea Wolfe and her notoriety of being connected to sleep studies and the conditioning that can go on therein, it is really quite stunning. But so when we look at the amount of time between her birthday and her latest album, it's 63 days. And it's funny because that's 63 days before her 36th birthday. Now, remember 36, we can say it's, well, 3 sixes. It's also viewed as a 666 because the 36th triangular number is 666. And if we multiply that by itself, we get, right, 216, which is a number of the beast. And if we mirror and add 216, it is 828, which is a Pez theory number, just connected to 138. Fuck. All right, so I'm going to keep going here. All right, so look at Chelsea Wolfe's initials, C, J, and W. Those letters, if we add them together, are 36. This is an incredibly important number. But so I also want to draw your attention to the fact that a video was released. I'm sorry, that alarm that goes off is actually connected to something really big. So give me just a minute. Alright, I might have to rush through this video, the rest of this, and I might have to even cut it off early, but alright, let's go. So, she just released a video for track 4 of this album. So, why that's so interesting, again, the 6th album, the 4th track is now a single. Again, that gives us a 64. That's the same as Klaus Amoun, Thelema. And that track is 3 minutes and 31 seconds in length. And so again, when we think back to My Name and the Book of Thoth here, and that 133, and all of the massively, just go back and watch the Meaning of Our Cloud video, as well as the Bernie Sanders one, for huge elaborations on that number. And again, I will pull up the simple value for you on the right side of your screen here. Get the most recent one because it is a huge number. And again, all of the things I could say there, including its connections to 171. But so, think about this further, right? That track is called Deranged for Rock and Roll. And again, the fact that it's track 4, this is my 4th year with everything on YouTube, on and on, all of the things that we could say there. But I want you to see that deranged for rock and roll, the way it's spelled here with the symbol, is a simple value of 201. And again, you drop that 0 and mirror it, it's that number 12 again. And it is the same as Full Harvest Moon, which again was what happened the day she released the album that is on. But so let's think as well that the video for that song was released on September 5th of this year. That was the 248th day with 117 remaining. So of course 117 does reduce down to 77. And you can see on the right side of your screen, 248 sharing not only coding with President Donald Trump, his assassination and a one-world dictatorship alongside population reduction, but it also is the same as the slogan for Manhattan, again, which has a 212 area code and is where the New York City Marathon finishes. All the other big things I talk about there. But so now back to the left side of your screen, deranged for rock and roll spelled out, simple 220. So again, these ideas of world depopulation, the Aquarius apocalypse, that reference back to Revelation 13, and again that is beast out of the sea. And so I do always have that pulled up with the border security bits there, because it does share that same coding. Border security, of course, those initials TS, that 219, that's when the full snow moon was, all of those things. All right, it's there. It's why the shutdown allegedly happened, all of the things I've gone on to. But it's also the same here as the kingdom of Saturn. All right, all of these big pieces, the underground bases, you name it. So, birth of violence, 15 letters. It's the devil card. There's some numerology here that I've broken down for you. That simple value of 176. Pretty interesting again here when we pull it back, because it does connect to September 18th. Again, massively important day that I'm always talking about. But notice on the left side of your screen here, birth of violence, that simple value of 163 is the same as Make America Great Again and Salute to America. I've talked about those all throughout this video. It's the same as Box of Chocolates. Remember, the same day this album was released was International Chocolate Day. I'm going to build on that to the very end of this video because that's so very important. But I want you to also see here the two triangles reference, again connecting back to the Hanged Man tarot card and the symbolism of the body going underwater there. And you also have the numbers written out, 170, and these are very important because that's World War III written out. That's also HARP, earthquakes written out, 74, a number we've come back to again and again in this video. And again, you see these bits here pertaining to genetic engineering, the Vision Quest, and the Manhattan Bridge. Now you also see again here 233 written out. The simple value for it is right here in a phrase said by a cartoon character right before the Manhattan Bridge collapses. So what more could you fucking ask for? Now, all of these bits here, again, thinking about birth of violence, sharing coding with nuclear winter, and just going back to the opening moment for her album trailer here and the snow and how that could represent that. So really it does go on and on. But the other one I want you to really think about is if we also look at that written out as 107 instead, that is the same as the final track on her latest album's length. And that song is, of course, The Storm, and it's track 12, all the things, plus TS is 2019. And, oh my God, that's incredibly stunning. Now, in thinking about that 107 as well, let's bring it back all the way here. And again, it's connections to 515, Day of Be With Us, Bernie Sanders' fucking presidential slogan, the glyphs on the Roswell wreckage from 47, right? Mirrored 74, all the things. But so, keep going here. I want you to see that the American Darkness Tour, as I referenced earlier, coded for all of these major pieces. And when we look at June 21st, not only was that Lana Del Rey's fucking birthday, but can also be written out 216, a beast number. And you can also see, again, that is when the tickets went on sale for this tour that began in Pasadena, California, another part of Pez Theory. It's an 18-letter city, state writing there. And again, August 31st, a mirrored 138. But so you keep looking through here. I do think it's interesting that Washington Redskins is written out because on November 3rd, they're going to be playing the Buffalo Bills, who were featured, right, in Natural Born Killers, and that was Super Bowl 27 that we saw taking place on the date of that prison riot and the murder and all those things. But so I really am rushing this here. But so do notice that the tour span from August 31st to November 21st is 83 days, or 2 months and 22 days. So those numbers are unreal. Again, 2019 marking 83 years since Crowley's Equinox publication, right? Equinox of the Gods, all the things that you see on the right side of your screen here, the Roman numerals for 2019. And of course, that symbol of 222 connected with not only the World Economic Forum and natural born killers, but also the ideas behind the September 11 attack. And yes, those numbers always come up next to each other. So a lot to consider. But so thinking back to this album being released on the anniversary of the death of Crowley's Layla, it was the 87-year anniversary. And so again, of course, thinking about 8 and 7 is 15 and the relation to the devil card. But it is also a simple value of inside job, truth, the sun, again, the path of the sun this year, and all of these pieces, fallout, architect, on and on. So now, during the trailer for her album, she is chanting the phrase, bloom and eclipse them, wake up and transform. And again, how that comes across as not only moon referencing, but also, right, transformation, that death referencing. But notice here it's a simple value of 411, and of course Kennedy shot on 411 Elm Street. But I also want you to think about the fact that Chelsea Wolfe has a simple value of 114, which is obviously the mirror of what she's chanting. And so you can see here written out the number 333. And of all of the ways that that is so important, I want you to think about that is the number assigned to the Book of Lies. And again, the connections I've shown you with my copy of that book. But so there's a tremendous amount of pieces here, and those with you, those of you with understanding will be able to put them together. But notice here, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. But so again, finishing out here, Chelsea Wolfe's coding 114 for New World, the Tower, World War, all of these big things. And her initials, 323 from those letters. It's a date that's been on my mind for 2020, and since it is going to be a leap year, that will actually be the 83rd day. So again, how that ties in with the span of her tour. And the thing that I want to conclude this video with is this phrase, these phrases, I guess, our Klaus Amoun prophecy. And at the end here, right, you see that phrase is 252 asking, do you understand now? And it also gives us reference to September 29th. Now remember, that is going to be World Heart Day. And that was the very first date that I pulled out 4 years ago to be leery of, because September 29 reduces to a mirrored 9/11, and this idea of mirroring love and using it as a day for great catastrophe. Now you'll notice that World Heart Day is also the same as the Rite of Luna, and everything we connected with that earlier, and the rites that Crowley created in that ritual. And again, the way he wrote them, that is actually the final rite. Now notice as well, again, the 216 ritual sacrifice, the 144 and Antichrist 7. I mean, it's such a huge number and concept. Now, there's more. I want you to also take into consideration here the number 1,500 that is written out, because that's 1,500 You drop those zeros, and of course, that is another 15 devil card reference. But you do see here the reference to the blue light revelation. Again, Project Bluebeam, the Mark of Beast prophecy. And this does share with Isn't This Where We Came In? Again, the connections to Pink Floyd's The Wall, Trump being 33 when that album was released, and again, all of the things that I'm constantly showing you on here. But so, very important number, but notice as well, the storm is upon us, but most fascinatingly, it writes out the number 171. Now, that is the Pez theory, which is my prophecy. And the fact that it comes up like that, and all of the things that I have shown you with that number, including how it's present on the very first video that I put up on YouTube, it's unreal. It is, you can't ignore it. And you see here the federal pillars and how that tied into everything in the beginning here with Reduit Saturnia Regnia and that 235 and victory of the people. It's all there. But so what I want you to see is that we can actually look at the date October 17th as a 171 if we drop the 0. So what's so interesting about that is it's the 290th day. And with that, we have the phrase, he who solves the puzzle, as well as reference to the number 232. And again, you can see on the right side of your screen the connections to Trump saying, I am the law and order candidate, which was the 33rd point in the Pez theory. But when you continue to go through and look at all of these pieces of psychological manipulation, you have the reference to 144 yet again. You have the number 321 that's present here. And so we actually have seen that come up because it's the same as Judith with the head of Olefranes. And again, the 7 seals of the apocalypse take this storm seriously. And you can see in the prophecy coding of my name, the storm is upon us. And so again, all of this just so heavily tied. And of course, if we mirror that, because this written out can actually also be 123, well, the plot only thickens, because that simple value is the same as the marathon and death sentence and 411, which we just saw written out here again in the chant from that trailer. But you also see Death to America and King Chocolate. Again, if we think about Milton S. Hershey, the man behind Hershey's, he does have that 171 coding as well. So here's that for you again, and how it all connects into why it was so important that she released this album on International Chocolate Day. You keep going, you see referencing to the United States government. And if we look at the span of time from October 17th, which again, if we look at it this way, could reduce down to 117 and 77, which we did see not too far back here, right here, for the release of Deranged and Rock and Roll. But if we look at that to November 3rd, it's 18 days. And again, the incredible importance behind that number. And again here, when you see that if we look at it to November 8th, it's 23 days, the referencing to Skidoo, chapter 23 from Book of Lies, and Get Out, and Sacrifice, and all of it. It's overwhelming. And the last piece I have for you here, there's so much more, but that alarm that went off a while back is something I really do need to address. But is the fact that CJW can reduce to 315. And I think there's a lot of importance in this number, and I do want to hold it out here because when we are looking into AFI, and again, they released the Blood album the same day that Trump came into office, but their fourth album, released well before that, begins with a track that is 1 minute and 33 seconds. And that track is called Strength Through Wounding, and it has a simple value of 315. And in that, it says 18 is an important number, and also references Skull and Bones Secret Society, the elite President Donald Trump, the planet Saturn Antichrist, and the regal magnificence of the 888. So do remember that the English value of 888 is connected with this 148, and again, that is the same as Donald J. Trump, as well as the chanting that goes on from Delray and Dark Blue and all of these bits. And so really, there's so much more that I wanted to get into, but I have to go and address that. And one more very fascinating 171, and shout out to Jamie in Louisiana, and I mean everybody that comments. Good servant Jay Sheely's always got really interesting insights as well. Triple M, Bridget, everybody that comes across here. EA Sports 11, it's hard to think about right now. But in this comment to Jamie in Louisiana, I talk about the release of my meaning of this video and channel on July 7th, and that span of time to November 3rd is 17 weeks and 1 day, so 171. And again, how that connects into Pez theory and all of these other pieces, including 171 being written out in the prophecy coding there. So again, there's so much more to be said, but I cannot express enough thanks to those of you who stuck with me to the end of this video. It is tremendously appreciated. There's one last thing I want to squeeze in here, and it is track 7 on here, When Anger Turns to Honey, because it's 3 minutes 9 seconds. Drop the 0, it's a mirrored 39. But when anger, or excuse me, mirrored 93, master thelemic number. But when anger turns to honey is the same value as Tata Consultancy Services. Again, the sponsors of the New York City Marathon taking place on November 3rd. And in that song, she's referencing the harvest moon again, which is what was taking place when that album was released, and the fact that it is track 7 and this 171 that I keep honing in on for you here actually shares coding with the number 7 written out. Okay, fucking with me. All right, so there you can see it connected with the 171. All right, so with that all being said, I really do have to go. Thank you all so very much, and I will absolutely do that live stream when the time is right and we are getting closer and closer. So again, please be well.